Kevin Crowder. I'm the founder and street economist here at Business Flair. And I realized something as we've created content for our Music Cities YouTube channel over the last few days, that for you cities, if you're not already prepared for Gen Z, you may have already lost the first battle of the economic development war. See, now bear with me for just 4 or 5 minutes, and I'm going to tell you why. Because what we do over in that channel is we look for things in music that are relevant to the work that we do in economic development. But recently I had a realization, not just on that, but for some new statistics that are out about Gen Z's behavior. And this morning I realized how that relates to what we do in cities. I've been thinking about it, what it means for companies and entrepreneurs as they look at that as at Gen Z and boomers and Gen X and millennials as different market segments. But one thing I do is I talk about why heavy metal is more tribal, why it has the strongest sense of belonging out of any music genre. It has more longevity than any modern genre in its tribalism. Now, opera is the second most tribal in our study, but it has obviously more longevity. But when it comes to the modern era genres, metal has the strongest. It's followed by opera. And then from that, it's followed by gospel. But that's not the point. The point is that belonging, that sense of connection that we have to music, that we have in the metal genre. You see, metal's 50 years old now, and so are Gen Xers. And we have that belonging because for these 50 years, we have been defending our music against accusations of being devil worshippers, of causing people to commit suicide. 50 years of being attacked created 50 years worth of belonging. We belong to each other because we had to in our music. Nobody else was going to defend us. And that created a tribe that's more loyal than anything your marketing department has ever built. But here's the economic development lesson. If your city, as I mentioned, is not prepped for Gen Z, you're so far behind already. A recent study found that 19% of baby boomers are planning to retire early because they're tired of dealing with Gen Z at work. At the same time, 28% of Gen Z said they are actively searching for a role where they do not have to interact with baby boomers. Everyone is framing this as a generational clash, a war. It's not. It's a crisis of belonging, and it has everything to do with your city. Gen Z doesn't experience belonging the same way that boomers did, or the same way that Gen X does, or metalheads, or whoever. But you see, boomers belong to institutions. They belonged to the company. They belong to the church. They belong to the civic club and the fraternal organizations. There was a mutual contract between employer and employee, and that was the foundation of community for decades. That contract's gone, and not through Gen Z's fault. They watched their parents get loyal and then get laid off, figure out how they were going to retire comfortably. They're coming into a workforce that has AI uncertainty surrounding it, student debt, and a housing market that treats them like tenants. When boomers say that they're lazy, they hear it differently. They hear, you want me to sacrifice everything for a system that doesn't give a shit about me, that's not going to sacrifice anything for me. It's not laziness. It's just a different risk calculus and a different point in time to be at that stage of a generation. And what's your city missing? Gen Z is not looking for a job. So if you're still chasing jobs, you're behind. They're looking for a place to belong. They're looking for an identity. They're looking for their tribe. And they will move to the city that gives them that, not the job. Or they're just going to build it online and they never need your city at all. The cities that understand this are already winning. They're not recruiting with tax incentives and quality of life brochures. They're building scenes. They're building places. They're protecting venues. They're investing in cultural infrastructure and community because that's what creates the belonging. Cities that do not understand this are still just running that old transactional economic development playbook. Chase corporate relocations, targeted industries, and hoping that the boomers stick around long enough to keep the tax base running. And when these boomers retire early because they don't want to be around other generations, they can't stand them, those are the generations that are about to replace them. So those cities that find themselves with an aging population, a shrinking workforce, and no pipeline of youth, the youth who move away because there's nothing in your city for them, that's where those cities are going to end up. So the lesson from heavy metal is nobody manufactured our belonging. Nobody ran a campaign to make metalheads loyal to each other. That belonging came from our shared identity. It came from 50 years of the world telling us we were wrong, there was something wrong with us, and us telling the world we don't care. Gen Z has that energy. And I realize that. They've been told that they're lazy. They've been told they're entitled. They've been told they don't understand how the real world works. And just like metalheads, they're building their own tribes because you did not want them. Because you see, us 50-year-olds, us Gen Xers, us metalheads, we're the ones now in charge. We are the CEOs. We are the founders. We are the city managers. We are the politicians. The reason you see our genre and 50-year-old bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Great White and Slaughter and all of them still touring is because we have the means and the ability and the desire to keep our music alive. That's what makes our tribalism so important from an economic development perspective, not just to entrepreneurs, but to cities. Gen Z is going to replace us. Millennials will too. But if you're not building for Gen Z, you're not building for anything. And so the question is not how do you attract Gen Z as if it's a targeted industry. The question is, do we have anything worth belonging to? Anything that they're going to want to be a part of? Because the answer is not another mixed-use development with the craft brewery on the first floor. Gen Z's not looking for those amenities. The millennials were. Gen Z wants to find their tribe. And the cities that figure that out are going to own the next 30 years of economic development. The ones that don't are going to spend another 30 years wondering where everyone went. Anyway, more on our Patreon. Let's do it. See ya.